Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana, and you are watching Marksman TV. Today I've got another gun store vlog for you. Now I don't really have a whole lot of new inventory items to show you guys, so I'm not gonna bore you with the redundant type of stuff that we have in here or that you have in everybody's gun store. So I do have a bunch of more surplus stuff coming, but that will not be here until next week, so I will showcase all of that on next week's vlog. But anyway, I still wanted to get this out and at least do a question of the week for you guys. So one question that I get all the time is sort of our dealings with the ATF. So people who are interested in getting into opening a gun store, they want to know to what extent they deal with the ATF, what those interactions are like, what are some of the procedural things we have to adhere to when we open a gun store, operate a gun store, and how are the ATF agents in general. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that now. If that sounds interesting, stick around. Okay guys, dealing with the ATF as a gun store. So let's start from day one. So you want to open up your gun store. What you're going to do is you're going to file your application to get an FFL. Now part of that application process is an actual interview with your local field agent. So in every one of your local jurisdictions you do have a ATF field office. Those offices are filled with agents, and you will be assigned one of those agents as your sort of ATF liaison, which you will have throughout your experience operating your gun store. Whether they retire or you retire, you'll get a replacement, but that's basically how that works. Now you've sent off your application. The last step, they of course do your background check because you have to send in fingerprints, photos, and all of that. They will call and schedule an interview and say, okay, we have all your information done. We just need to do an interview with you, and then we'll set up your get your FFL going. So keep in mind it has been about 5 years since that interview, so I will try and recollect a lot of what happened during that meeting. Now my first experience or my first expectation was that my ATF field agent was going to be very much like, I don't know, it's the black suit, the dark glasses, the earbud for some reason, which I don't know why I always picture that, but it's sort of a very cut and dry personality to the books and somebody you don't want to piss off, almost sort of like an ominous, scary type figure, which is how federal agents in general are kind of depicted in most movies, which is how we get most of our experience. We set up the appointment in our store, which at the time did not have any power, did not have any lights. We had just our counter where the cash register and everything is, no display cases, nothing, no build out at all. And the meeting was in August. No, it was in June. So it was very hot, and I decided to show up in a full button down shirt. I think I was even wearing a suit because this is an interview with the ATF. You have to look your best. Our agent, I'm not going to use his name, but our agent shows up and he's just in a golf shirt and some khaki pants and some hiking boots, if I remember correctly. But I remember the first impression was a really casual looking dude, and he actually had the type of laid back personality as somebody you'd want to go to a bar with.
Chase Bishop doing a backflip when the gun falls on the ground. As he reaches down to grab it, it goes off. Oh,
well, as long as there wasn't any drinking, or dancing. So we met in the store, and I knew the interview would take a long time, but they didn't tell me a lot about how much time that would take. And I thought that we could actually go over to a coffee shop or something in the area, and he set up all of his stuff on the counter in our dark, vacant store with no air conditioning in June and said, all right, let's go ahead and get started. So I was like, okay, I guess we're gonna do it here. We were standing, so it's the counter that sits, well, I'll show you. That counter down there with the screen on it, that's where we were standing, but there was nothing else in here and no lights. So we were actually standing for an interview that would go on to take 4 hours. It was the most excruciating 4 hours of my life. So it probably, but he actually didn't seem to he was totally cool with it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm dying. It was, well, I was wearing a suit. He was better dressed, so he's smarter. He got me on that one. Why did it take 4 hours? Okay, they will go over the guide page by page by page with you. This is all of the requirements that we have to adhere to. It is the FFL rule book, all the laws. Keep in mind, everything in here you have to know. if they come in and they catch you on technicalities, they're probably not gonna like pull your license for honest mistakes, but you cannot use ignorance as an excuse. You have to know everything in here from cover to cover, and they use that 4-hour process to go over it with you, everything, giving you the opportunity to ask questions. Our agent was, and he's still my agent now, he's my ATF liaison. If I have any questions, I go to him. Very, very, very helpful. They want you to do well. This is my experience. They don't want you to screw up, and obviously they want you to follow the laws, but they're not out to try and trick you or overburden you with all this useless stuff. I mean, that was my experience. So I feel like they've been, my agent has been very helpful. He's been very transparent. He was really, really good, but the meeting took forever. One other tidbit of information I can give you about my agent is I have, and I said this on another vlog, is I have a customer of mine who's starting his own gunsmithing business out of his home in a neighboring town. And the city was not, they were not very friendly and trying to have him open his place, and they kept throwing up roadblocks. And the ATF agent, my agent, who is also his agent, so I guess he services this area, was very helpful in trying to help push along the process, and was definitely on his side to get his business open. So honestly, you can't speak for every ATF agent, but the one that I've been dealing with has actually been super helpful in keeping gun stores open and operational and inside the guidelines, and it's just been super cool. So no complaints there. On top of that, they will also go over this manual with you. It's all the stuff about how to report lost or stolen firearms, how to report multiple firearm purchases, different numbers you can call if you have an issue. Let's see, firearms inventory. Oh, they go over all the logging. So all of your guns you will have to log when you get them in. You'll have to log them out when you sell them. Trying to see what else. Guide to recording suspicious person description. So things like this. So if you get suspicious people in here, you'll have to fill this out. You don't really use this stuff. I've actually only had to fill it out once. Other than that, I haven't really had anybody that I've been worried about. So anyway, that's basically all you do in that part. Okay, now you've moved past the interview process. After my interview process, that was the last step. So I think 2 weeks later, I got my FFL in the mail. Really cool, good feeling. Came in and was able to start setting up my business. From that point forward, what's your relationship like with the ATF as you're operating your business? So the number one thing, the number one encounter that you will have with the ATF afterwards, kind of the natural encounters without any type of weird thing happening, when I'll get into those scenarios too, is they will do audits. An audit typically happens, I think about once, I think they'll do an audit in your first year, and then it's about once every 3 years from that point on, until probably they get to a point where if you've been in business for like 30 years, they probably stop auditing you every 3 years. Probably it's like once every 5 or once every 10 years from that point, or unless they keep getting a bunch of traces through your store or a bunch of complaints or something. I don't know what triggers an audit. But an audit is where that agent, or maybe that agent or a couple other agents, will come in. They will look at your logbook, they will look at your inventory, make sure there's nothing missing, make sure there's nothing suspicious with your records, make sure that your records are all meet the compliance of the ATF and how they want you to keep them. They just basically do that to just make sure, is this business keeping in compliance with the ATF guidelines? Audits, I think if they catch you on technicalities, they'll work with you. They're not gonna like shut you down over a stupid like clerical issue. But issues where I know they will shut you down is like if they go through your logbook and there's like 30 guns that show that they still are on your inventory, like they're somewhere in your store and then they can't find them. Or the opposite, 30 guns that have been logged out, but they don't have like background check records or FFL transfer records or anything on those guns, so they seemingly just disappeared. Those are issues where you will probably get in a lot of trouble, and those are, per my understanding, the issues where most people lose their license is reasons like that. Another instance where you will deal with the ATF is if firearms are stolen. So if you have a break-in, that is the ATF's jurisdiction on any type of loss of firearms or anything like that. So they will be the ones coming in, If there's any like, what do I want to say, like reward for information on a suspect in a firearms theft, usually it's the ATF putting out all that information and wanted pictures and stuff. That's all done through the ATF. They control that. Another instance where I deal with the ATF would be like weird circumstances. There was another gun store that got broken into maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. They did recover a vast majority of those firearms that were stolen, and the insurance company of that gun store, so the insurance company paid out that gun store for the loss of the firearms. The firearms were subsequently recovered. Since the insurance company paid for those firearms now belong to the insurance company. In most cases, an insurance company will just have those firearms destroyed. That's what I've heard. In this case, the insurance company reached out to me and they asked me if I wanted to buy the collection of firearms. The insurance company, of course, could not take possession of those because they are not a licensed dealer, and the insurance company had no interest in keeping a collection of guns. They just wanted to liquidate them and get some of their money back. So we worked out a price, and I went down to our ATF offices downtown in the it's a federal building. So that was an interesting experience because I go into a federal building downtown which houses the FBI and the ATF with a duffel bag. There were no like guards or metal detectors or anything, which I expected because I thought that they were at the courthouse, which has all of that, and I was like, well, how am I going to do this? But anyway, I go in a federal building with a duffel bag, go up to the ATF offices. Again, I expect to see people that look like this, but I don't. I see a guy that sort of looks like he just got back from a frat party, and what I actually was his wife, plain clothes. And the reason I say that, I'm not trying to poke fun, but they were actually street agents, so they keep a very incognito, low profile. Another guy that looked like this came in to be a witness on the paperwork, so the witness that they were moving firearms from evidence to my inventory. So I took my logbook with me. They had, and I asked them if I could bring cameras so I could show you guys this because it was an interesting experience. But they had a big conference room. They had all these guns with evidence boxes and tags laid out on the table, kind of like you see in news reports of all the like a police evidence locker or something. That's how it was. There's all the guns, and then there I am at a federal building buying guns from the ATF, which is not from them, but getting guns from the ATF. It was a really weird experience, one I never thought I would find myself in. Anyway, so again, super cool, super helpful people, and not at all what I expected. Not uptight, you know, federal agents or anything. They were just like totally, I was probably more uptight than they were. In fact, I'm sure I was. Anyway, so they came in, they read the firearm information off to the witness, who confirmed the information, and then I wrote the information in my logbook. I took possession of all the firearms, stuffed this big duffel bag with the rollers and everything on it, and then an ATF agent, well, one of them, escorted me out of the building and down the road. So I was walking with an ATF agent, drawing a bag full of AKs, ARs, Glocks, everything, you name it. No boxes, just thrown in there. And just rolling them down the street downtown, and got to my car and he helped me load them in. And while we were walking to the car, which was about 2 blocks away, just having normal conversations about guns and gun ownership. And again, you would never know. The guy was with the ATF. But that's probably, like, he tries to keep it that way. Again, they try and be incognito. Now, I don't know any experience about being on the receiving end of an ATF raid or anything like that, short of having a reputation of killing dogs and throwing smoke bombs at babies. And I'm saying that a little tongue-in-cheek. I know that there is a law enforcement branch of the ATF that a lot of people are familiar with and hear about. I don't know anything about that. I've never been raided or anything like that. All I can tell you is that the agents I've dealt with on a business relationship basis, it's like dealing with a bank or anyone else. They're just really down-to-earth people. You wouldn't expect anything else. But anyway, I will leave you guys with that for this question of the week. If you guys have any more questions about dealing with the ATF, or maybe you've dealt with the ATF yourself, maybe you had a good experience, maybe you had a bad experience, please let me know down in the comment section. I would be interested to read that. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel. Anyway, I am Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana. You are watching Marksman TV. I will see you next time.